Hello and good morning, everyone, and nice to see you again in our IELTS lessons. Today we will be practicing IELTS Speaking Part 3. Then we will check IELTS Writing Task 1 bar graph. Okay, so in today's advanced course, Speaking Part 3, or the two-way discussion, we will be taking one of the most difficult topics here, which is the architecture and preserving old buildings. But before we practice this speaking section, we will first review very quickly on how to answer this IELTS Speaking Part 3. Okay, as we have learned in our previous lessons, we have been studying the PREE method in answering Speaking Part 3. And each letter here from P stands for paraphrase. Then we have to give our reason or points. Then we have to explain this reason or point, and we must give our example. Alright, so for paraphrasing, we have been learning that this is very important because the range of vocabulary is determined on how well we change some keywords into their synonyms. That is, without copying exactly the words uttered by the examiner. After we give our reason, which is mainly our single main point, we must clearly explain this by answering the question how and or why. And after that, we have to give our example, which is, as I have said and we have learned before, optional, but oftentimes these are necessary. And these examples here should always be something observable or general and should not contain any specific or personal experiences. Alright, now before we engage in a two-way discussion, let us add first some useful words and phrases in your vocabulary bank. Now we have here 10 words that we can use to talk about architecture and 10 words that we can use to talk about old buildings. Now again, these words and phrases are significantly useful in describing architecture and old buildings. Now let us take the first phrase, which is the high-rise buildings. These buildings are also called skyscrapers, which have at least 50 floors or story, and this is an opposite to a terraced house, which looks like this: houses that are attached to each other. Now a hut is a small accommodation and are built with wood materials and leaves or trees. Now we can find huts in remote places. For example, in my country we can find huts in some beach resorts where they offer an overnight accommodation. And a cottage looks like this. It is small, yet the materials used are a combination of modern materials like cement, glass, metals, and wood. Now if you want to travel from one place to another and you want to take your house with you, then this is ideal for you. It is called a mobile home. But one disadvantage here is that you cannot have an extension building where you can build another room in your house. Okay. Now before you build a house, you need to check first the what we call floor plan. This floor plan contains the division of rooms in your house and their sizes as well. This is good if you want a customized floor plan that suits your needs and your wants. Next part of the house is, or another part of the house that we have to check today is what we call a lobby. This is the first section of the lower part of the building, right in front of the main entrance door. In here, guests can wait for their host. And another interesting part of the house is the basement. This is located partly or entirely below ground level. And if you want to store your old things at home, you can keep them in your basement. Okay, now the next phrase here is, if young people today want to buy an apartment or a house, and for those who can afford the cost of the apartment, they can choose actually the fully furnished house or the fully furnished apartment. It is a house or apartment with all the home amenities and facilities like the television, bed, fridge, and all that you need in your house. Next is the place where exported and imported goods are stored is in the warehouse. In the Philippines, for example, some warehouses sell their goods at a lower price, like the PREE Warehouse Club in my city. Now, the inside of your house is what we call the interior, and the outside of your house is called the exterior, of course. And if you want to have a customized design of your house, you can hire an interior designer, and I think the architects do the exterior design. Okay, so now that we have learned some useful words and phrases that we can use to describe architecture and preserving old buildings, we now have to review just a little bit on how to effectively answer this speaking section. Now, as we have been reviewing in our previous lessons, one best way to present our argument in the speaking part 3 is to use the, again, PREE method, which is to paraphrase, give our reason. So we have to explain this and give our general and most observable example. Now let's take this question for example. It says here, what do you think about your country's old and modern styles of architecture? And to paraphrase, we have to get the keywords here. We have the keyword think, old and modern. All right. And after we get the keyword, in our answer here, it says, I believe that there is a huge difference between my country's architectural design today and in the past. So basically, we get the keywords think, old, and modern, and replace them with synonyms. So the synonym of the word think is believe. Architectural design is the architecture. So we just have to simply change the function of the word. So we change it to architectural. And old and modern styles, we change it to today and in the past. Right? And after we paraphrase the question, again, the reason why we need to paraphrase the question is that our range of vocabulary is tested. So we don't simply have to copy exactly the words in the question, but again, we have to look for synonyms or at least change the function of the word. And to continue, the reason here says one obvious difference is the minimalistic design of most buildings today as compared to traditional ones. Then we give our explanation. The minimalist design applies the core principle of beauty in being less, or beauty in having less. And then another explanation here. This means that the design applies fewer colors and images and more space, which is quite the opposite of the old architecture in my country. Alright, so now I'd like you to do on your own. Alright, so let's check if you can give a strong and convincing argument in this two-way discussion in IELTS Speaking Part 3. And again, I'd like you to answer all these questions here. First is you have to prepare your answer, and I'd like you to share your answer or speak your answer to your partner. Now before we give our answer, we must first check the possible synonyms of the keywords in each question here. So here, for example, again, we have to try to find synonyms of the keywords in the question. Then after that, we have to follow the PREE method in giving an answer or argument in speaking part 3. So for example here in question number 1, alright, so it says here, we check here the keywords. So we have here think, can be believe, old, past, modern, today, architecture, so we can change that to architectural design. Then in number 2, we have the words here, or we have the keywords here, feel, increase, living, apartment blocks. Alright, so we can use, or we can change the word feel to think or thought or idea. Increase, we can change that to grow. Yes, grow or rise. And living in apartment blocks, it means staying in staying in the flats. Next is number 3, factors. So we have here some keywords that we need to change or look for synonyms. So factors here can be reasons, right? So what are the reasons? Affect here, we can change the word affect to change. And decision, we can change that to not really a synonym, but change the word function, so decide. So we can say, for example, that one reasons that affects or affect the effect on how people decide on their architecture of their house or apartment or building. All right, so we just have to simply change the function of the word. And here we have lastly, number 4, we have the keywords here, think and 50 years. So again, just like in question number 1, we can change the word think to believe, or in my opinion, in my to my mind, etc. And 50 years, we can change this to 5 decades. Alright, so 10 years is a decade, and 50 years is 5 decades. Now the same thing goes to topic 2, preserving old buildings. So again, we must first and foremost try to search for possible synonyms of these underlined keywords and phrases here. And after that, we practice paraphrasing. And if we can effectively paraphrase the question, then after that we have to practice giving the right answer. Then we have to give our explanations and examples. Okay, so I'd like you to look for synonyms of the highlighted keywords here in the topic preserving old buildings. Okay, so you may pause this video and you may use your dictionary to try to search for some synonyms, or at least change the function of the word. Okay, so again, if you want to keep updated of our new lessons every week and cover the entire course to ace your IELTS in achieving a band score of not less than 7 in all areas and be confident, right, at English language, then I'd like you to just click the subscribe button and hit notifications to give you some updates. All right, so thanks, and see you again in the next lesson. And study well, study smart, and always remember that progress is progress, no matter how small. All right, so see you and goodbye.